Okay, everybody. I want to talk a little bit about this thing with Hillary Clinton, this email thing. I mean, they should rename Fox, CNN, and all these broadcasts from whatever they call them now to the Hillary Clinton email um, scandal, because that's all they want to fucking talk about is Hillary Clinton's emails or the Clinton Foundation and how they're a bunch of crooks. Okay, not that we don't already know they're a bunch of crooks. They are a bunch of crooks. I mean, as if that's news that Hillary's a crook from her campaigns and from her her foundation, and she did a bunch of stuff with her email she shouldn't have done. I mean, we already know all that stuff. It's every fucking day with this thing, man. A federal judge on August 22nd ordered the State Department to plan for the release of nearly 15,000 emails uncovered by the FBI in its investigation of Hillary Clinton's handling of classified information on a private email domain as a Secretary of State. In July, the FBI recommended no charges, right here, no charges against Ms. Clinton, and said that there would be no evidence, there was no evidence that those emails were intentionally deleted, but called her handling of her email at the State Department extremely careless. There you go. So for the next, I don't know how many months previous to how many months forward, we got to hear about this email scandal. It's extremely careless. That's it. Okay, so the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of Fox Network broadcasting about the email scandal and how this is going to play out and how it's going to bring her down is garbage. It's a waste of time, and it's frustrating to even listen to this crap. It's so beneath everybody. It's beneath anybody with intelligence to sit there and listen to this garbage day in, day out, knowing that nothing's going to happen. So I wish they'd give it up. It's boring. It's really boring. So I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I listen to it all the time. And I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear any more about Hillary's email campaign or Hillary's email scandal or whatever's going on. I actually listened to this last night on Fox News about the Green candidate party. Well, I've never heard anything about this woman. I mean, I get to hear all the time about Hillary's emails, but I never get to hear about this Jill Stein that's running for president on the Green Party. I actually liked what she had to say. She had some pretty good information, and I thought was pretty well laid out. Only problem is this guy right here, Chris Wallace, who was interviewing him, and I think Chris Wallace is a little bit on the left, even though I think he works for Fox, but he's a little bit on the left. Anyway, he was interviewing her, and he was kind of throwing her some softballs. And then at the end, she's doing really good. I like the stuff she said. And then at the end, he asked her about how would she handle ISIS, and she just fell apart. The only thing she said is, "Oh, we would take away their funding." That's about all she could come up with on ISIS. So she just really fell apart on that one question. I thought it was pretty interesting. But my answer would back to Chris Wallace would have been, define ISIS for me. I feel I'm a fairly well um, traveled internet searcher, and I'm pretty up on the issues. I mean, if Judge Janine come up and ask me questions as man on the street, or if Waters World come up and ask me questions about if I know who the vice president candidates are, I'd probably get them all right. I consider myself fairly knowledgeable on all this stuff, simply because I'm on the internet most every day, and I've been got some perspective. I know a lot about politics. I know a lot about these people. I've been to law school. I'm not totally ignorant on the issues. So I would be like, define ISIS, because as somebody that's fairly up on the issues, I can't define ISIS. I don't know the difference between Al Qaeda and ISIS. I really don't. And what really makes me frustrated is I hear this thing one day that Al Qaeda roots um, are tracked back to Greeley, Colorado. How the intellectual father of Osama bin Laden's terrorist network learned to hate Americans in a tiny Colorado town of Greeley. And, when I heard this one out on CNN, it really perked my ears, because I grew up not too far from Greeley, Colorado. Greeley, Colorado is a pretty small little town, and there's not much happening down there. And evidently, this guy who was going to school at the time went to a dance. This is the story. Saw the Americans there out there on the dance floor rubbing up against each other, and of course, this just raised his disdain or distaste for Americans, because he thought they were so, um, you know, uh, sexually explicit with the way they were dancing and caressing and stuff like that. So he goes back and starts preaching about how we're the people live in America or the devils or anything. Everything we do, everything we put up, everything we talk about here in America is terrible, and so they start this radicalism. So when I hear some story like that, I'm automatically kind of leery about what this is all about. So I don't even know the difference because it went from Osama bin Laden, it went from even back to Jimmy Carter and all the stuff going on in Iran to now we're at the Islamic State, the terrorists and all this stuff, and now we're at ISIS. So there are all these different groups, and now we're at ISIS. And honestly, I can't tell you the difference between ISIS and Al Qaeda. But I was just going to search it real quick, and I did search it a little bit ago. What we're getting to know just how different ISIS is from Al Qaeda. So apparently, Al Qaeda, which is who Osama bin Laden was part of, this is kind of like, let me read this real quick. The Islamic State, also known as ISIS, and to the group's disdain, has adopted virtually opposite approach in consolidating power across the Middle East and beyond. Whereas Al Qaeda primarily enemies have always been the United States, ISIS targets are much closer to home, namely the Shiites and Syria. And okay, there's some other stuff here. But the stark contrast between Al Qaeda's large-scale dramatic attacks and ISIS' slow territorial conquest also reflects the difference between the two organizations' ultimate goal. Whereas Osama bin Laden view jihad, global jihad, as more of a long game. ISIS wants Muslim states and wants it now. So I guess they're a little bit in a bigger hurry than the Al Qaeda people. So the ISIS guys are a little bit quicker about doing this thing. Oh, here's the problem: ISIS mastery of social media. Here we go. Now we're talking what the real issue is here. They got on social media, so they're real dangerous because they're on social media. And online propaganda. Oh yeah, they're online too. So we're going to have to limit all that. We're going to have to really watch social media and online because these guys are the masters of it. Propaganda has given the ability to recruit tens of thousands of young jihadists in a way that Al Qaeda was never able to do. Written statements and bland made for TV proselytizing. So the issue here is that these guys are more savvy to the internet, so they're more dangerous. So if I were the Green Party candidate, I would say define ISIS for me and define what it is. Well, I know what they're doing. I mean, they basically hate Americans and they want to behead all of us. So that's kind of what's going on here. So the way to attack these guys is probably through the social media and online and all the other stuff, like Donald Trump wants to do. He wants to shut off the internet because everybody's doing stuff online. I don't know. I mean, this is all crazy for me. It's just all crazy. Where's it all coming from? Where's it all going? One of the things that if you ever heard about The Art of War, the Chinese book of military, talks about how the treatises of military study of how to engage in war. One of the primary tenets of that book is define your enemy. How to define your enemy. In World War II, we defined the enemy because of borders, nationalities, and we were able to align allies against other powers, and it was very well defined. Today, it's not. I mean, you got a group that we're fighting that started in a Midwestern town that's about as benign a place to be as you can ever be. I mean, so these people that kind of hate us were actually at one time living and going to school and part of our society. So now they've moved away and they hate us and they want to kill us. So how do you define who they are? I don't know. Anybody that comes over here and decides that watching our culture is something they may think is a threat upon whatever they believe, how do you define that? How do you organize that? How do you fight against that? How do you set up some sort of strategy? I don't think going over and just carpet bombing other countries or destroying other countries is a good way of doing that. And if I was this Jill Stein, that's what I would have said. I would have said, I need to have it better defined, better organized, a better attitude, a better strategy for how this is taking place. Because I'm an educated person as far as this stuff is concerned, and I don't know. So, I mean, if she would have approached it in that way, I would have thought she was fairly, someone had some pretty good views. And I'd like to hear somebody new. I'm tired of Donald Trump and I'm tired of Hillary Clinton. I'd like to hear who else is out there. There's a couple of other candidates I'd like to hear from. So that's what I got to say. I'd like to see some of that instead of every day, Hillary Clinton's emails, Hillary Clinton's foundations, how Hillary Clinton is on the take. We know she's on the take. Every politician's on the take. They're all on the take. You don't think Donald Trump would be any different? I mean, the billionaire Trump, I mean, he's all of a sudden going to, forego any opportunities to make money because he's president. Give me a break. So anyway, I appreciate you listening.